On February 27 of this year, my wife gave birth to our third child. Outside the door of our hospital room was a giant red X because I had been to South Korea a few weeks earlier, and that was deemed a dangerous place because of the pandemic. At the time, there were 6 cases in America, and all 6 of them about a 20-minute drive from our hospital. And then 13 days later, we would announce to our city that we were closing our dining room indefinitely. The first time in 70 years that we had closed. For most restaurants, that's kind of where their story either ends, sadly, or where their story goes to a dark place. And for our restaurant, it kicked off the most extraordinary season of business ever. We set records in revenue. We garnered more PR and media attention than we had had in the 69 years leading up to it. And everybody wants to know how we did it. And that's why I'm here. Hopefully I can tell you. Here's the answer. We have a clear and unchanging mission statement. But the strategies or the vision statement to accomplish it are ever changing. In fact, that's the key to a great pivot. One foot stays firmly planted, but the other one is free to move wherever it wants. Before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit of background about myself and our restaurant. I'm a 4th-generation restaurateur. My great-grandfather emigrated from Greece in the early 1900s. He opened a restaurant in Northern California called the Food Palace and Fish Grotto. My grandfather opened his first restaurant in Honolulu in 1946-ish, after World War II. And after it had success, he brokered a deal with Pan Am Airways to sponsor the opening of Canlis restaurant in Seattle. The airplanes flew back and forth between Seattle and Honolulu, and they introduced the flavors and the ingredients of Hawaii and Japan to Washington State, effectively creating what is today called contemporary Pacific Northwest cuisine. My grandfather was a brilliant restaurateur. Fine dining standards like tip pooling, team-styled service, open kitchens can all be traced back to his first restaurants. He died in 1977, and my parents took over. They tried a whole different strategy. Instead of trying to be the most brilliant and best and forward-thinking restaurant in the country, my parents decided to instill the entire thing with heart and hospitality and goodness. They cared deeply about people and their community and their neighbors, and they loved staff and guests in a way that I think few restaurateurs have ever loved anyone. My brother and I grew up in the business. Of course, we washed so many dishes, we bussed so many tables, and both of us, after graduating college, were commissioned as officers in the Air Force. And it was our time in the military that kind of crystallized our thinking, the thinking around the mission statement being so solid and then the vision statement being so flexible. I was stationed for a time at Manis Air Base in Kyrgyzstan for Operation Enduring Freedom. Our entire base, I lived in a tent, there was tents everywhere. Everything worked up towards one singular mission. That was to support the refueling efforts of bombers over Afghanistan. That's it. That was the mission of the entire base. There was like 2,000 of us. My brother was in a special operations squadron, and he actually had a cooler mission. Even though he spent most of his time behind the desk, they did some really neat stuff. In fact, one of their missions actually was to rescue a hostage. Super clear mission. Everyone knows if you fail, you succeed. Get in, get out, rescue the hostage. Where things get really interesting, that's us. Where things get really interesting is the commanding officer's vision statement around that mission. There can be wildly different strategies to accomplish the same mission. Think of the hostage, right? One commanding officer could say, okay, we're going to load up our big angry helicopter, and we're going to go in guns blazing, and we're going to shoot everybody, and we're going to spray paint American flags on all the walls, and we're going to blare some Kid Rock music, and we're going to take the hostage, and we're going to put the fear of God in these people that they'll never, ever take our person ever again. Totally worked, mission accomplished. Another commanding officer could say, okay, here's the plan. We're going to go in the dead of the night, super stealth. We're going to use blow darts on all the guards. And when they all wake up in the morning, the hostage will be gone and they'll never even know who was here, right? Two wildly different strategies, same mission. And the mission was accomplished. When it comes to the Canlis mission, we really wrestled with it as a family. We knew it was doing something really good. We really believed in this restaurant, but we had never put words to it. And it all crystallized and a little bit came to a head when about 12 or 13 years ago, we had an option to buy the land. We had been renting it for 50-something years. We rented the land, we rented the restaurant, we had a nice landlord, but we really wanted to own the darn thing. And thankfully, in the option to buy clause, in the language, it said that the landlord had to value the restaurant incumbent to a lease of a long-term restaurant. Well, that was awesome. We actually got to buy it at a discount because of that. But on the day that we actually bought this thing, the appraiser came to us and he said, you're no longer incumbent to lease it to yourself. You could just tear it down and build condos, and today you would double your money. We could double our investment by bulldozing our restaurant. In fact, he said he thinks in all his work that the single worst thing we could do with this gorgeous piece of land with a view all across Seattle is to keep a restaurant operating on it for 6 meals a week that is barely profitable. And so we got together as a family and we said, why are we doing this? It's a terrible business. You don't make much money. It destroys families, and famously, it has a high failure rate. You work nights. What's the point? But we all got together and we thought, no, we don't want to tear it down because this place matters. It does something. It means something. And so we set on the hard work of determining what is our mission statement as a restaurant. And if you've never done that work yourself, most of you have, it's the hardest, most gratifying thing ever to put words to why am I leaving my family every day and going to work? Why does it matter? It's the coolest privilege that we have as business owners is that we get to decide why it matters. We get to set our mission statement for our companies. When I leave my kids, I want them to think this is worth it. Dad's working on something that actually matters. It's one of the things I love about Tugboat. Almost everyone's done this work. It's your purpose. We had dinner at Limelight last night, and John, who I just met, who's somewhere out there in the darkness, said, I think their mission was to restore dignity to manufacturing. Okay, that's worth getting out of bed for. So we put words to our mission. It's to inspire all people to turn towards one another. All right, it has nothing to do with restaurants. And it's grandiose, and it's not very achievable, and it's really big, and I'm sorry. But we love it. It's born deeply from within our hearts and from within our values, and it's the thing that we care most about, and we want something big enough that we can spend our whole lives doing it and never quite get there. We had our mission statement foot planted, and now Mark and I, my brother and I, were taking over the business. And we decided, okay, now it's time. What are we going to do? What's going to be our strategy? And we thought, okay, if people are going to listen, if we're going to inspire all people to turn towards one another, what's the plan? And we thought, well, we need a bigger microphone. It's not good enough to be the best restaurant in Seattle. We need to become maybe the best, most talked about restaurant in America. A podium is useless if no one's in the audience. And so we took a cue from another great, someone who's the best at his field, Picasso. I remember I was in Amsterdam about 10 years ago when I first saw one of Picasso's bull studies. You can look at it. The one that eventually goes in the painting is the one on the middle right, the simplest, most simple line drawing of a bull. But in order to get there, he did all of these shapes and all of this shading. And he didn't try the same thing over and over and over again. He mastered all these different forms. Well, my brother and I thought, what if we decide to go at fine dining and try to master it the way that Picasso mastered the form of a bull? And so several years ago, we took our first big kind of risky stab at it. Normally we do a birthday party at the restaurant's anniversary, and there's champagne and white tablecloths and tinkling of things like pianos and champagne flutes. And we thought, what if we turned this entire thing into a ski chalet? And what if we pile up snow at the front of the restaurant and we have CO2 cannons on the dance floor and St. Bernards running through the dining room and hot tubs at the front door, people in bathing suits passing out beers. And what if we just show everyone that Canlis doesn't have to be the thing that they think it is? And so that was fun. So we thought, okay, let's do that again. And so we started throwing these parties, right? And these got a little bit crazy. We turned our front entrance into a 5,000-gallon koi pond that led to a Hawaiian paradise with waterfalls in the dining room and all kinds of things around. That's where the cars park normally. We built a tattoo parlor in our basement where guests could get tattoos during the party, and an entire Chinatown crazy party underground. We turned our entire restaurant white for one night, the floors, the walls, the ceilings, everything white. We got giant inflatables and put them all over the restaurant once just to see what that would look like to our community. We turned our kitchen into a 1950s diner. Each one of these moves, every time, we're practicing this move, this feeling. We're accomplishing our mission, but we're growing in the flexibility and the feel that we can change our strategy all the time. The creativity inside the restaurant eventually led to creativity outside the restaurant. And we built a milk bar one day with Chef Christina Tosi. And we decided, okay, what if we just had this big outdoor picnic, playground, county fair, and maybe a few people will come. About 4,000 or 5,000 people showed up. The next summer we tried that with Shake Shack. Again, a 4-hour wait just to get into our parking lot to have a burger. And it wasn't just out in the parking lot or in these parties that we were being creative. We started doing this inside the restaurant. We took out tables. We doubled the average check just about. We went from a menu that required about 6 or 7 cooks to execute, the one that took about 25 cooks to execute. We remodeled again. We changed the format of how you order. We changed the format of the dining experience. We did all these things, but the mission never changed once. And without knowing it, we were becoming master pivoters. When COVID-19 broke out, the rules changed and we were no longer allowed to be a restaurant. I was actually on paternity leave when my brother called and he said, I've been meeting with the team and I think we should close the restaurant and open a burger drive-through stand. I thought, okay. He's like, I think we can do 8 lanes of traffic, which is what we did. And I think it'll be really fun. And I was like, awesome. And then he said, I also think we should open a bagel breakfast shed in the mornings. We'll walk up with sandwiches and first bagels on our big wood oven and coffee. And then at night, we should try home delivery and bring meals to people's houses. So I said, we're going to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 3 different concepts. We would have a Saturday night normal service, close on a Sunday to take a breath, and on Monday, open 3 restaurants. And we did it. I remember talking to our staff when we first announced it to the bigger team, and it had been a hard week. I mean, gosh, guest counts were dwindling every night. You guys remember, in the beginning of March, every headline was scarier and crazier, especially in Seattle, where it was just spreading. And there was this feeling of helplessness. And we told our staff, hey, we're going to close the restaurant for the first time in 70 years. We're going to open 3 restaurants. And the looks around that circle was hope, excitement. It was relief. Their eyes said it all. They said, bring it on. We got this. And they did. I don't know another team in the country that could have done it because they didn't have the training that we had. Over the next 24 or 25 weeks, I skipped this one, but that's okay. We built a pool party also in our parking lot. It was wild. In fact, let me just say one quick thing about this. We built a pool party, 1,000 guests a night, DJs spinning records, a pig cooking over an open fire. And it was one time these guests were in the dining room. The dining room's like 200 feet away from this. And they're, drinking champagne. And they're like, is it true that there's a dance party happening in your parking lot right now? And I said, yeah, you want to come see it? And they're like, yeah. So we went out right about where this view is looking down. because we had a swim up bar over there in the corner. And they were like, what? What are you doing? And I said, oh, well, working here, my entire team out here only makes us better at what we do in there. And 1,000 more guests tonight get to be inspired by our mission. And I talked to them about Picasso and the bull. And it was just awesome. And so over the next 24, 25 weeks, we launched 9 different concepts. First was the drive-through, then the bagel shed. Canlis Family Meal became this home delivery thing. But then we learned that the drive-through and the bagel shed were kind of a disaster. They were bleeding money. So we closed those and we poured resources into the family meal. We thought, okay, how do we make that special for guests at night? And we hadn't laid off any employees. In fact, I think we're one of the only full-service restaurants in America to not lay anyone off. And our piano guys are the only ones kind of not without a job. They were drivers at night. And we said, why don't you guys start playing piano? And we would put an invitation in people's dinners at night to listen to live piano music. That is happening tonight. You can check it out. We still do a live piano show every night. From there, we launched CSA, which was a way to support more small farms. We started delivering groceries with recipes and ideas to people's homes. That led to bottle service, which was wine pairings, cocktail kits, bottled cocktails. Again, all delivered, super fun. We launched the general store because we started making merch and swag with all this stuff, and it was a cool way to raise money. In fact, I think to date we've raised about a couple $100,000 for nonprofits in the Seattle area just through these endeavors. And then things got a little bit nuts when we launched Bingo Night. I'll play it in the background. It's kind of hard to describe. I'll skip that one. We put on tuxedos, and we invited musical guests from all over the country. And we would put bingo cards in people's dinners, and they would play along with their families at night. And we'd have a few thousand people playing every week because we decided people need to be inspired. They needed to turn towards one another. They needed to have a beacon of hope in this time. And so letters started flooding in from around the country of other restaurants and other businesses who were being inspired by all the madness that we were doing, that you didn't have to give up. We then launched the drive-in theater. You saw that logo, which we built a giant screen in our parking lot and invited every night cars to come from the safety of their own car, but they could still order burgers and popcorn and watch a show. Tonight, if you were in Seattle, you'd see our latest move, which is a crab shack. We built a restaurant from the ground up. We built the tables ourselves, and they have built-in hand sanitizer, and we have a shipwreck and about 10 tons of sand. And it's wild and fun, and people love it. And again, I don't know what's next. In fact, I should close with that idea. I don't know what's next. Will Canlis ever be a fine dining restaurant again? Yeah. When? I have no idea. What I do know is that tonight we are accomplishing our mission statement more than ever before. And that's awesome. And the greatest thing that I can leave you with is this idea to put the work in and the heart to realize that how good and refreshing and powerful it can be to give one foot the freedom to dance while the other rests firmly in a mission statement that's worthy of your life's work. You've got this. Thank you so much.